We are live. See, told you I would try to go early. 5:58. That extra 2 minutes should really help us with this evening's 13-game shit-a-palooza that we are looking at right now. Just want to state once for the record at the top of the show, most days, I really enjoy my job. All right. Here we go, 13 games. Obviously, we're going to have to handle things a bit briefer than normal. I will attempt to John Machida machines this shit up. That wasn't a good start. Stumbling on over a few words, but here we go. Energy drink down, and we're going to work. Boom, here we go, starting at 7 p.m. Toronto Raptors visiting the Charlotte Hornets. Not a ton of interest in this game. A lot of games like this, you're going to get a pretty quick run through. My rankings are in for the moment. If you were an Awesemo .com member, you would get to see my shizzle about every dude on the slate every day, including today, which I assure you, we're not going to have time to hit everyone in the show. For Charlotte, I think Kemba is playable on FanDuel. He is my fourth favorite point guard in that range behind Steph and Dame and Kyrie on that site. But they are not technically eliminated. He has done some uber fourth quarter, I'm taking this shit over, pay me my money shit over the last few games. I really don't mind him. I have slight reasons to have him behind those other guys. I certainly don't have an issue with you not playing Steph because you think they just absolutely break it off in the Cavs. I still slightly prefer Kyrie, slightly prefer Dame. Maybe somebody else I'm forgetting, like more than, say, Trae Young, who we'll get to in just a moment. But Kemba, fine, especially FanDuel, where $9,000 is cheaper than $9,000 on DraftKings. What is life outside of that? If you force me to take a second play off this team, it's probably Kaminsky at 4,200 on FanDuel, where you could go back again. They will start Michael Kidd-Gilchrist again. He is my seventh favorite minimum price punt on FanDuel at small forward, so I don't think we need to go there. That's it for that team. Let's look at the Raptors. That's it for that team. All right, here we go. Moving on to teams number 3 and 4. Let's look at Atlanta. Going into Orlando. Orlando, one of the very few teams today that has A, an advantageous matchup, and B, quite a bit of motivation to get out there, put their thing down, get their thing done. So there's no one on Orlando out of their big six that you cannot play in a tournament who I would find particularly execrable. My favorite, probably Vooch on FanDuel, where he is still underpriced at only $100 more than his DK price. Absolutely someone I would have exposure to. No problem if he's your cash game center. No problem if you run him out there in tournaments. Unlike several days recently, it was profitable to do so. I will stick with Vooch over Gordon at his respective prices on the sites. Gordon, obviously, also in play because he carries the upside, and those two guys would be where I would want to do the majority of my lifting here. Again, on a slate this massive, we just have value opening up left and right, all kinds of guys at 4K we can expect to do as well as some of these 6K guys, but probably you're going to get a decent to great game out of Ross or Isaac or Fournier or Augustine against the Hawks. I have a tough time ranking those guys. I didn't have time to break down every team in depth, and they all rank pretty similarly to me. FanDuel, probably Isaac at the shitty position, and 3 for a steal and a block. Atlanta gives up oodles and oodles. Still believe they're leading the league in turnovers if you're looking for the spot where you can really nut it out. Plus, his ownership is going to be sub 1%, and he's a small forward, so probably Isaac, the one I'm most gacked up to play. Ross and Fournier I have almost dead even. I like Fournier actually a little bit more, and he is a little bit more expensive. I suspect I'd play a little more Ross for the savings, but again, guys who cost 5-6K, kind of difficult to get to here. Across the ball, I expect this team to go over-owned in a pretty goddamn dreadful matchup. They are starting who we thought they would be starting, even without their 2 shooting guards being the starter of Huerter and the backup of Ken Bazemore. I fully expect them to do some real minutes splittery news hits right on time. Deonta Davis available to play. I still think they run out 9 guys. You can play Trae Young. I have him less optimal than 4 other guys. It is just a very difficult spot for this team. I don't hate Taurean Prince on FanDuel where he's cheaper. I don't hate Justin Anderson at 3,600 on FanDuel where he's cheaper and should get 36 minutes. I don't hate DeAndre Bembry on FanDuel. I don't like any of these guys. I don't want to pay the price in this matchup for Trae. I don't want to pay the price in this matchup for John Collins. keeping in mind and additionally consider that most relevantly for those super expensive players, they have done some minutes bullshittery. Not last game where they took it wire to wire and just put it down on the 76ers, try not to be embarrassed, Philadelphia. But the game before that, the game where we talked a lot about the Hawks, one of the reason only 2 of the 8 chalky Hawks got there was they were winning and really didn't want to win that game, and so they yanked all their players who were doing the best, and you got only 31 minutes out of Trey, and I can't expect much more than that out of him today. Alex Len, who was dominating, didn't play the last 7 minutes of the game, so that Deonte Davis could get in there, nearly get his double-double, etc., etc. So Len at 5,000 on FanDuel is fine in a tournament. Bembry, FanDuel again. On DraftKings, I don't really think I want to play a Hawk. I'm looking at it. In 150 lineups, I would have 3 Trae Youngs and 1 John Collins or something. That is about all my exposure to this team. Moving on, game number 3. The 7 p.m. games. The Spurs going into Washington. Spurs still some motivation here. They'd like to climb themselves out of the 8th seed if possible. Maybe buy themselves a second round of the playoffs. Probably not, but could certainly happen. Marco Bellinelli will miss the game tonight for them. That solidifies, not just me, but also the minutes for guys like Patty Mills, minimum price punt on FanDuel. I don't think I'm doing it, but is the Wizards. They are terrible. Bryn Forbes, again, a little solidified. I don't think I'd get there even in 150, but removing Bellinelli kicks up his minutes upside to 27, and weirder things could happen. I would get to some Derek White, mostly on DK, where he's 5,200. The matchup is fine. He can do 40 or 45. Bellinelli being out gives him an additional couple of minutes upside there. The matchup is obviously great. And, yeah, I'm sort of a Derek White stan. One of the teams not on a back-to-back here, I should say. There are 2 games tomorrow, but no one playing today is playing tomorrow. The Cavs, the Warriors, Lakers, and Kings played yesterday. None of those teams are the Spurs, so that gives you reasonable confidence that they will roll out however much of LaMarcus Aldridge and DeMar DeRozan they need to get the work done here. At their relative prices, I again have them almost identical. Aldridge is exactly $500 more expensive on both sites, and I have him projected for about 3 more fantasy points, and that works out just about dead fucking even. So whatever positions you end up at, feel free to roll one of those guys out there. I generally like them. I have them as Bs in cash plays and As in tournaments. They do have a very real upside. Slightly prefer Aldridge, again, raw points. Sorry for the kiddies listening for dropping the F-bomb there. I just get so excited. Looking over at the Wizards, again, not a great matchup. We have started to pull the minutes rug out. Brad Beal out of play, seeing his 22 minutes last game. We certainly don't want any of that. You can play Bobby Portis, again, priced better on FanDuel. I really don't want to go there. I would rather run Christian Wood, and I'm not super excited about running Christian Wood. I would rather run lots of guys. But not impossible that you get 30-plus minutes out of Portis again, and he can get 50. So if you're running a massive number of lineups, I don't mind a share or 2 there. Sort of same deal with Satoransky. Again, priced much better FanDuel. Actually, sort of same deal with Troy Brown. These are all guys who will get many minutes and could get a lot of minutes, unlike that you get there for Satoransky. But last game we saw a particularly massive amount of minutes for Troy Brown and Thomas Bryant. Jabari Parker news shouldn't do a ton. They've announced Jeff Green will be back in the rotation. I have him at 20 minutes right now. Might only play a dozen. Might play 29. But not a ton to love on this team. So Troy Brown on FanDuel. Sure. Guys I would rather go with. You have the Hezonias and the various other guys we're going to get to who make better upside small forward punts for me than Troy Brown against the Spurs. But in 150, I'd have some Troy Brown. I'd have a couple Bobby Portis. On FanDuel, I'd probably have a couple Satoransky. That would be where I draw the line. Let's move on to our second swath of games, if you will, jumping all the way ahead to 8 p.m., because why space them out at all? When we have, 13 of them, nothing going at 7:30. Starting at 8 p.m., let's go with the Knicks going into Houston. Houston, unsurprisingly, giant favorites here. I don't mind getting yourself to bearing the lead. We'll talk about Hezonja last. We'll talk about the sexy plays last. I kind of like James Harden. I like his price on FanDuel. Look, the likelihood here is that they whoop on them pretty good, but he gets more time than he should in ass kickings. They aren't on a back-to-back. They leave Harden out there. There's literally 38 times a year I'm like, why is James Harden on the court? There's 5 minutes and 10 seconds left to go, and they're up 29. Oh, well, I guess he needed points 40 and 42. There's a point at which there's so much value you're just into a raw points consideration. So there's a chance on a slate like today, and I'm just rounding some numbers here, but if you have a guy who at 10K projects to score 50 fantasy points, and you have James Harden at 12K projected to score 57 fantasy points, that ends up being closer than it should be, if everyone understands what I'm saying there, because there's just so much value with guys towards the bottom who you think can give you 30, 35, 40 for $3, $4.5, $5,000, that guys like Harden become better than they would in a vacuum, and that's setting aside the fact there is super ridiculous ceiling if somehow the Knicks G League team does manage to keep this game close. Harden played in New York earlier this year and had 97, which represents one of his two 97-plus games against the Knicks in the last 3 years. Not that anyone from that fall of 2016 game is still playing on the New York Knicks. But another reason to take Harden is you could randomly hit triple digits, and there's no team more willing to give it up so sweet than these Knicks, though I do think they get their shit handed to them, and that's the more likely scenario. But even in that case, you maybe get 33 minutes out of James Harden. He can do 80 against the Knicks in 33 minutes, so I don't mind the spend-up. I do not mind Chris Paul on DraftKings. On DraftKings, I'd probably rather play Chris Paul than James Harden in a point-per-dollar sort of sense. Now, again, there's a slate that is really telling you to play guys that cost 3K, 4K, and 10K. But 7,400 there, had 50 in his last game, certainly could do that against the Knicks. In consideration, no reason to play Eric Gordon or PJ Tucker on this slate. Clint Capella, the prices come up, would rank pretty low for me as far as centers go. The Knicks, Point Hezonja. Okay, look, I like Mario Hezonja as a player. He should have been treated better for all those years in Orlando. Still young, but he is not an NBA point guard. He has a very well-rounded skill set. And can do lots of stuff, but this offense should be terrible with him running the offense. One lineup on FanDuel, I would consider running Damian Dotson at shooting guard instead of running Mario Hezonja at the 3. Dotson is also going to start, probably going to play 38 minutes, maybe 40 minutes, and I imagine he is 6% owned as opposed to point Mario Hezonja, who is going to be 38% owned. Now, shooting guard, not as good as small forward, rather. No issue with you running out Hezonja in anything. Okay, I haven't projected for north of 30 fantasy points at this point. I think he plays 37 minutes and just blunt forces his way to, I mean, if you project him for, it's not a good matchup, but if you project him for, a little less than a season average and give him, 3/4 of a fantasy point a minute, that gets you like 29. There's really nothing wrong with 29, and there's obviously some ceiling there. So it has a lot to do with the ownership. Knox really just a worse Hezonja at this point. They have comparable fantasy games. Hezonja actually a better fantasy producer than Knox. They'll both play infinite minutes, but one of them is going to touch the ball a lot more and play as point guard. And yeah, but again, if you want to see someone struggle to play point guard in the NBA, Mario Hezonja, one more reason to like Chris Paul is he's going to guard point Mario Hezonja. I'm not going to lie, Chris Paul is a pretty good steals dude. I'm just saying, if you see Chris Paul triple-double with steals today, don't say I didn't say it was possible. Mitch Robinson, look, $7,000 on DK is objectively too cheap. I have no issue with you running him out there in a tournament. I don't really have an issue on FanDuel even at 8,700 because, 9 blocks gives you a lot of fantasy points at 3 per. But he still does have foul trouble from time to time, and James Harden will make that situation far, far worse. When they played in New York and Harden had his 97 just a couple months ago, part of that was fouling out Mitch Robinson in 15 minutes or something like that. Not shocked to see that there again. Luke Cornett on FanDuel I would have a share or two of in 150. Not a strong avocation, not starting, but when Mitch Robinson fouls out, somebody's got to play center. Know what I'm saying? So Luke Cornett possibly playing a lot of center. Backing up Lance at the 4, obviously. I'm not playing any Lance. Oh boy, that was more time than I wanted to spend in April on the Knicks. Let's go on to another game. How about Miami going into Minnesota. High price center. Again, you're going to want some of these guys because there's a lot of value and a lot of these guys look good. You know who looks good? Karl Anthony Towns. Not the most brilliant matchup for him and has been really out of form recently, and I don't much care. Just gigantor ceiling. We like the fact that he is at home, that this game has a very minimal line. The Heat are certainly playing to win. We will get there in a second, but they're still trying to get into the playoffs. They're around 25% right now. I'm not... they're priced a little less advantageously. But again, Karl Anthony Towns, when you have no Rose, no Teague, etc., you're just going to have games where he has a stupid usage. There is a giant ceiling here. And come to think of it, someone messaged me this when you get a second. I think he had 80-something against the Heat earlier this year. I could be confused. It could have been the Magic. If someone gets a second, bang that out to me. With more guys available than there are today. So it's not a great matchup, but Towns, while not full Harden Westbrooky matchup proof, certainly with those guys out, can do some real damage. I would suspect in that game, if I'm remembering it correctly, he played 36, 37, 38 minutes, whereas tonight he's probably going to play 32, 33. That would lower your consideration. I probably slightly prefer Vooch. Someone remind me later, we'll go through high-end centers. They are all sort of in a box. I would quite a bit prefer Drummond. If Blake doesn't play, I expect Blake to play. Matthews in, Collison out. Yeah, that's what I expected. So don't run Tyreek. Feel free to run Kojo. But we'll get there in a minute. The Miami Heat, again, everything to play for. The problem being everything to play for makes them, unlike most teams, where it's like, we have everything to play for. The starters are going to play 43 minutes. No, that doesn't really happen with the Heat. Apparently you need air to talk constantly. You can Goran Dragic. He has shown big upside, but that price is obviously quite a bit up. Winslow being back, I'm not sure, how the ball handling responsibilities go between Winslow and Waiters. He nearly triple-doubled last time. Yeah, and I think the number was like 80-something. I seem to recall a good day. I remember he was in Towns, had 34, 18, and 6 blocks in the game. Okay, so that is the game I'm remembering. So, yeah, he can get there even in this tough matchup is my point. Again, I'm not a real fan of game log watching, but it is, just for like, hey, look, that upside is there. It happened is at least a usable note for me. You have to be several games in, or I need to have watched a lot of video on it to say I think this is apropos of something. So I'm not strongly enough on it that I'm like, yeah, play Towns, it's a great spot for him. I don't have in my notes or in my memory offhand, this is how good he is against Adebayo. This is how that looked for me. This is how the defense is aligned, so more usage will be funneled to him. There's guys where I combine like video study with game logs and collectively go like, yes, this looks really good. Here, it's more of just a notation that like, yeah, it's still Karl Anthony Towns without the other guys who suck up a lot of usage, and he can do big stuff. But the Timberwolves defense has been really bad. This game should be close. I would have very small amounts, especially on FanDuel, where they are priced more advantageously, of Dragic, Waiters, Winslow, Olenek. Not going to get to Adebayo's. FanDuel's price is a little bit too nuts. But those guys, even Wade, none of them are priced that well anymore, and we look to see a lot of minutes fractured and moved around. But they're pushing for the playoffs. At some point, you're going to start seeing some virtuoso Wade performances as he realizes he's possibly in the last few games of his career if he doesn't crack the postseason. So, I'm just saying, if they keep fighting to get in the playoffs, you're going to catch like a 31-minute Wade game here, and 31 minutes of Dwayne Wade against the Timberwolves. I would have, literally, I don't think I'd have more than like 5% of anyone on the Heat, but I don't mind a smattering of the aforementioned gentlemen. No, I didn't mention Andrew Wiggins. At that price, I'd have a lot of trouble getting there today. The matchup is tougher for him. Most of the guys they roll out at the wing there, he's going to command a fair amount of defensive attention. 7,200, I think, on both sides. That's a number I'm not really going to frequently get to. Let's talk about the Pistons and the Thunder. I believe Blake plays. I assume people are watching the show. Yeah, people responded to the Town stuff. I'm getting people like, I can't see you, which I don't have time today to go digging and try to make sure everyone has a nice link. I imagine Blake Griffin plays here. he went through shoot-around. That's enough of an indicator for me. They need to win this game. Well, they don't super need to win this game. They are mid-90s or something to get to the playoffs, but that's not comfortable for you if you've been playing 80 games. You don't want to randomly lose out at the end. Oklahoma City, rather, certainly a formidable team. Not a brilliant matchup for the Pistons, but good enough. If Blake plays, I still don't have an issue with you getting to a little bit of Blake. Not a ton, but 1% Blake Griffin, and what's a pretty good matchup for him, actually, I would have a little bit of interest in. Not a ton, 2 or 3 shares in 150. A little bit of Drummond. If Blake is out, then I'm a fan of Reggie Jackson. I'm a fan of Andre Drummond. Right on the line of spending $5,000 for Wayne Ellington. I don't think I would get any, but it's worth noting that with Blake absent. Also, someone do me a favor and type this in premium Slack chat if you could. If for some reason you got to the party late, there is a button on, I think it's a box on your phone or 3 dots on your phone and a gear on your computer where you can speed up a YouTube video. Speed up the video to 1.5 speed or something, or plus 50%, and it will go faster until it catches up with me and then go back to normal read times. So you can go back to the beginning, because I don't think I'm going to have time for second cracks at this. So again, Blake's kind of interesting in tournaments for me. Drummond, still fine to play, but that would knock him under a couple of the other centers. Reggie Jackson on the periphery of playable. Blake out, like Drummond a lot, probably my favorite spend-up center at that point. Reggie Jackson pretty good. Wayne Ellington becomes on the periphery of playable. The Thunder, not a strong matchup for them. I prefer paying up for James Harden today than Russell Westbrook on FanDuel. On DK, it's a little bit closer, but I think I still end up with Harden a little bit more. There's nothing wrong with playing Russell Westbrook. There's nothing wrong with playing Paul George, who's a guy who has a big upside, who has a much better on-paper matchup coming in at the wing. And you're going to get Paul George at 3% owned today because of the other spend-up options, I think, are 6% owned. So some issue in Paul George ahead, but in a single lineup, I would still rather run Russell Westbrook. Jeremy Grant, fine if he slots in more of a cash game play. Not going to play Turd Ferguson. Don't expect it to be a blowout, so no interest in the bench guys there, really. Steven Adams, not worth it with all the available value today. Let's go on to... All right, did the notes on that. Let's do the last of the 8 p.m. games. I know I missed one. The Celtics and the Pacers. The Celtics will again be without Jaylen Brown and Marcus Morris. Gordon Hayward went off and had a very nice game last time. That puts him in play with the continued absence of Morris and Brown. Gives him some additional minutes, gives him some additional usage. Would rather play him on FanDuel where the price and position are more advantageous. Don't think I get there in a single lineup. Still not a wonderful matchup. Pulling Tyreek out of there and putting W. Matt back in helps the defense a little bit, which had been flagging a lot recently. Real prize of this game for me is Kyrie, 9,000 on FanDuel, 8,900 on DK. Again, that's a really nice FanDuel price. He is, again, in that group with Kemba and Dame and Steph and a couple other guys who are fleeting. Again, I have all those guys ahead of Trae Young, but the rest of them end up really, really close. I like the spot for Kyrie, not a back-to-back. And they want this game. This basically, these two teams I may have the same record. They're within a half game of each other, or a game of each other, but they're going to be the 4 and the 5 almost certainly. So this game will have a lot to do with who gets home court advantage during the playoffs, and obviously that's something they both want. Liking Kyrie quite a bit in this spot means I like the other guys a little less. Tatum has been seeing a ton of minutes, but again, the price is up a little bit, paying 6 something for Tatum, who's a guy who doesn't really have like a 50-point upside. Against the Pacers in the front court, where I'm less inclined to go in the back court. With Kojo starting and all that, I'm dubious. But if someone had Tatum, I wouldn't hate it. If someone had Horford, I wouldn't hate it. But I think for me, Kyrie on top pretty significantly. Second, probably Gordon Hayward. Third, Tatum. Fourth, Horford. Let's go ahead and look at the Pacers again. News just broke, so we will fix it. Wesley Matthews in, Darren Collison out. I really don't want anyone from this team. Give me a minute if I think it's worth clarifying. In 150 lineups, I would have 1 or 2 Miles Turner. I'm willing to go on with my day. Let's go ahead and move on to the solo 8:30 game, the Grizzlies and the Mavericks. Half the team, all the equipment managers, and the guy who sells the popcorn are out for the Grizzlies. So they will run similar to last game. I think they are being currently a little bit over-owned. That isn't to say that you don't have a big upside out of Delon Wright in what is a really strong matchup. Again, everyone is out for both teams. Well, not everyone is out for both teams, but the Mavericks are resting the 3 guys who do anything. And the Grizzlies, I'm more excited about the Mavericks by quite a bit than the Grizzlies. I'll start with that. And I don't think the ownership is necessarily going to follow me there. We'll take a look at that in a second there. But I hear a lot of people talking about Yvonne Robb. I don't know if Zeller is going to play today. I don't care that much. Robb played 31 minutes in the last game. At 5,300, I am more inclined towards several other pieces of value. Across the ball, I would rather play Maxi Kleber than Yvonne Robb at what I consider to be much lower ownership and a better matchup. Robb is fine. He projects very nicely at whatever he is, I think 52, 53 on DK in what's an above average matchup against a Dallas team that pace aside is really poor defensively, and absolutely my dude can get there. If he's going to be 15, 20% owned, I'm absolutely fine with some Yvonne Robb. If he ends up being 30, 35% owned, I'm going to find ways to look at other dudes. There are cheaper guys in fine spots. There are more expensive guys. It just isn't a reason to pay for chalky guy here, and I'm worried the minutes come down a little bit. But again, they obviously need him to play the majority of minutes at center. Tyler Dorsey on FanDuel deserves a shout. I like him a lot at 3,900 there. That still makes a lot of sense where you can drop it. And against the Mavs, we have seen him have big games this year. He has a ceiling. He also has a floor. We've seen that a couple times now too. Delon Wright against the Mavs with everybody the hell out obviously can put up 50. He's had 50-point games this year. He can grab something near a triple-double, but isn't a lock into every lineup play with everything else going on this slate. Across the ball, someone told me I had significant ownership for Dirk Nowitzki. I'm actually going to just take a first gander. You get live look at my face. Much like my face yesterday when we found out that Joel Embiid was 25% owned. Congratulations on everyone who made money yesterday. Okay, so that number has come down apparently, or was never that high. We have Dirk at 10%. Okay, that's a little more tolerable. Someone told me earlier in the day we had him as like, he would be my third favorite of the bigs on Dallas. I have him behind Salah Mejri. I have him behind Maxi Kleber. So, yeah. I want to make sure I have some exposure to Dallas. Dallas is the team I want most. Ever since, especially when you get Conley out of there, and this Grizzlies team is bad defensively, and they're playing faster. So there is no Luka Doncic, no Jalen Brunson, no Dwight Powell. So, yes, Trey Burke is one of my favorite plays on the day. I have to presume he's towards the top. Number one, he's 49%. Jesus. All right, well, that's about the number where I'd have to start thinking if I'd want to get on top of that number. Yeah, he profiles brilliantly. I have him for 35 fantasy points. That's very good for 4,600 or 4,200 on FanDuel. Yeah, he should just have like a 30% usage. They're getting rid of some fairly nominal offensive guys and now filling them in with, even more, challenged guys here. Yeah, this is going to be a bit of a mess. But, yeah, so I love Trey Burke. He's going to be around 50% owned. He should be, keep that in mind. It's still Trey Burke. Feel free to get away from it, but man, this Grizzlies team defense has been so bad. I'm kind of all in on Dallas here. So, Trey Burke, sure, as much as you want. Justin Jackson, yeah, sure, as much as you want. Not nearly as confident as Trey Burke, but I have a feeling he's going to be 10, 12% owned as opposed to that massive number on Trey Burke. Had seen 30 minutes each of the last couple games. Pretty surprised if that falls off now, wouldn't you be? I think he's a small forward on FanDuel. I see the price is 4,700 in me notes here. So that strikes me as a pretty interesting Mario Hezonja pivot, but I just want to make sure I'm getting that right. Justin Jackson is a small forward. Yeah, like that a lot. One lineup I might even go there, depending how many other Mavs I have. But you're going to have a couple very good Dallas Mavericks here. There's a hole in my notes here with their prices and positions on FanDuel, so I'm just going to do some Manually looking through here and talking about guys. So yeah, Maxi Kleber, 5,100 power forward on FanDuel. Love him. 4,600 multi-position eligible on DK. Like him even more. I'm a big Maxi fan here. I would much rather play him than Dirk. Dirk, obviously not out of play at 38 and 36. 38 and 36 for prices. I would rather play Salah Mejri, who has all kinds of sexy block upside and other things. Dirk is going to hope to make 7 threes and get you to 30 fantasy points. I think I'm going to look elsewhere more often than not. And that seems to be enough to go on right now. I imagine you get Courtney Lee actually playing like 25 minutes. He would be my 5th favorite Mav or something like that. Let's go on to the singular 9 p.m. game, the Kings going into Utah. Well, the good news is there's no Willie Cauley-Stein, so that makes you feel better about Bagley and his minutes. The rest of the team, Bjelica and his minutes, feel a little bit better. Bad news is you're going into Utah. Most of the prices haven't really adjusted to such a significant point that I'm in love with the Kings. I do like Costa Koufos. I have him for 24 minutes and 25 fantasy points right now. I actually don't mind the matchup for him. I go that deep to look at Costa and Gobert footage because I love you guys. But Nemanja Bjelica, absolutely fine to play. 3,700 FanDuel, 4,100 on DraftKings. Probably gets 28 minutes or so. I don't have a problem with that. Bagley, tough for me. Really has been trouble justifying that price. His price is obviously towards the top end of the range it gets to, and it's obviously not a wonderful matchup. We feel a little better about the minutes. Good chance of him finally seeing 30, but that's tough. Yeah, I Buddy Hield, again, too cheap on FanDuel. In a position we can certainly go there, but yeah, not a ton. Costa Koufos, 3,100 on DK is probably my favorite 3,100 or less guy. So if that slots into, if you have utility center and 3,100 or less to spend, I don't feel bad about playing Costa. Who, again, it's really funny when you see him talk, is very eloquent and speaks well. Every time I see it, it's funny because he looks like he should be, I was going to say he looks like he should be painting on cave walls, but he kind of looks more like he should be watching someone else painting on cave walls and going, "Urgh." Anyway, Ricky Rubio, questionable last I checked. I'm going to do news check, reload, alert check, as expected. Pirtle getting the start. Okay. I don't mind Pirtle the Turtle at all now. It's obviously a very good matchup for him. It's close on ownership, but a little more inclined to play Pirtle than Koufos at the relative prices. Still slightly prefer Salah Mejri, but in that mix of those guys, with the knowledge that he is getting the start there. I think Neto is still questionable. Rubio is still questionable. This obviously, Crowder's going to play. Favor's still out. Korver's still out. Royce, rarely a ceiling guy. We have seen a couple of Royce to 5.9 ceiling games this year. He is the min price on FanDuel. Obviously, I have no issue with you playing a guy who should play 36 minutes in a good matchup on FanDuel. I would rather play Nemanja Bjelica for $200 more. I would rather play Mario Hezonja for $1,200 more. Like, I want upside. You can get it out of 38 minutes of Royce against the Kings where he gets to 38. So I don't hate it. It's going to be a bit of an ownership question. We'll take a look in a second. But he should get oodles of time with all those guys missing. All this value disappointed us last time. Tabo was not the answer, as it was said repeatedly to me. Raul Neto, don't think I would have any need to go there. Gobert, FanDuel, it just doesn't quite compare with me with the other guys. Again, matchup obviously pretty good, but 10-5, I'd have 2 shares and 150. DK, I'd have 8 shares and 150. 8,900 is a solid price. He starts to compete with those other guys. Again, this all ends up being relative to Blake Griffin, Andre Drummond related news. A couple shares of Jay Crowder at small forward on FanDuel. A couple shares of Donovan Mitchell on DK where that price is still pretty appealing. Let us go then, you and I continue on. We're having great time. Great time. And then I see this game and think this might take a minute. Narlands going into Phoenix. Okay. Anthony Davis is doubtful. He was probable the last 3 games and sat. So now I presume he will play as doubtful. I'm kidding, but annoyed. I assume that someone from the PR room and the press room and the medical staff got together and said, okay, clearly there's a disconnect here because we keep getting probable from you guys and then he doesn't play. What's up? So he almost certainly does not play. Still no action from concussed Frank Jackson. I rhymed. I worry about the minutes for Elfrid Payton. I like to give myself some credit for being the first one off the Elfrid Payton train. There was, triple-double every day Elfrid Payton. And there was a bit there where I was like, yeah, there was the game where Jackson went out with the concussion and then, Elf didn't come back. And I've been like, no. And people have been playing a lot of $7,600 Elf in dicier matchups recently. And I think we saved some money by not going there. That being said, I don't mind him in tournaments today. Again, he's mid-priced, and everything is pushing you more towards stars and scrubs. But if he plays 30-whatever minutes, he should crush some hearts and dreams here. One of his triple-doubles in his triple streak was a 60-burger he dropped against the Suns. He doesn't like the Suns, who traded for him and pissed on him. So I like Elf in tournaments. I'd have to sit there and think about Elf or Rondo for a while. Both of whom are in pretty good spots with some minutes I'm concerned about. If money was no option, I'd slightly prefer Elf, but he's a little bit more expensive, DK at least. Really close for me. Ian Clark, still fine. FanDuel, 3,900. Would rather Tyler Dorsey in their respective spots, but not by a ton, no problem if you Ian Clark. No reason to go with Slick Kenny Hustle, though worth pointing out that Stanley Johnson is out. I like Stanley Wood. Stanley Wood? Stanley Wood. If I'm a porn star, I'm going with Stanley Wood. I like Christian Wood. There is simply a ginormous goddamn upside. I understand the risks. He played 20 minutes last game. There is simply a ginormous goddamn upside. We look at the last couple games where Browse at. He played his 28, 30 minutes and put up infinite fantasy points. And there really isn't any matchup where you're going to put up more infinite fantasy points than Phoenix. With no Ayton, no Holmes, they are going to be so bad defensively down low. This game is going to be amusing because Christian Wood can be a load to handle, as can Julius Randle and a couple other guys. And watching the, front court tandems of Ray Spalding / Dragon Bender / Josh Jackson try to stop these guys from just backing them down. Most disrespectful game from that excellent 76ers Bucks game, by the way, was that one time where, Giannis just schoolboyed Ben Simmons. A couple times it was a bump you, bump you, bump you. 2 hands. That was so good. And, Ben Simmons is an enormous human being and just ragdolled by Giannis. It was fun to watch for me. But back to life. Back to reality. Stanley Johnson out makes the minutes a little nicer for all these guys. I have Christian Wood for 28 minutes. I'm not shocked if I see 20 again. I'm not shocked if I see 32. And if I see 32, I expect something like 50 fantasy points, and that puts him in play for me. End sermon. Jahlil Okafor, obviously risky. Getting 20-plus minutes, the last few games. And again, matchup, bro. So 4,200 on FanDuel, I'm fine. 4,300 on DK, I'm fine. Probably for the money, slightly prefer the other guys who are going to play. They're like Kostakouffis, I think 24, 25 minutes. Salamenger, I think 24, 25 mintes. Jahlil Okafor, I think 24, 25 minutes. Okafor costs you, whatever, $1,100, $700 more, depending on site. Those other guys cost less, but have tougher matchups. I'm fine with any of that. Julius Randle costs a lot of money. Got his 34 minutes, which has sort of been mentioned as his cap. If he sees 34 minutes tonight, dude's going to do some damage. I'm just saying. $9,000, 8,700. I'd have a little. I don't feel great about it on tonight's slate. I'd have a little. The Phoenix Suns. Devin Booker, obviously out. I was 2 days early off that train. Still no Tyler Johnson. The real news that the late scratch of Rashawn Holmes, who again is someone I would have been obviously a pretty big fan of. This team gonna be struggling. Speaking of stupid upside, Josh Jackson might take 104 shots. You will have some amount of Troy Daniels gunning it up, some amount of Jimmer gunning it up, some amount of Jamal Crawford gunning it up, I don't mind any of those guys you're going to get. I don't know how the minutes will be amortized between Elie Okobo, Anthony Melton, Jamal Crawford. So those are all very uncertain guys for me. But in just about the best matchup you can possibly get, with no Devin Booker and obviously no, I mean there's just a metric but ton of usage to go around here. I like Josh Jackson a lot. He should cost $7,500 or $8,000 in this spot. He should play 36 minutes. He should take 30 shots. There are ways it goes badly, and Josh Jackson, there was earlier this year where half the team was out, and he was like $4,000 on FanDuel for 4 consecutive games and failed in all of them. So again, taking a look at the ownership, I imagine it's pretty high. Number 2, 39%. Right. So I would be lying if I didn't point out that this seems like the spot where Josh Jackson breaks it off, and if you've played NBA DFS for any period of time, you do not require me to elucidate any further. But by any paper metric and looking at the situation, the guy would project for some 35 minutes, some 45 fantasy points, and being an excellent deal at under $6,000. Do what you will. I don't hate McCall Bridges. I'm much more a fan on DK where he's 5,100. There's obviously some immediate leverage off all these other guys. Between the cheap and shitty guards, I've gone back and forth on this all day, so this is one of those times that this may not even match my rankings. I'm probably on Jamal Crawford, then Troy Daniels, then Jimmer Fredette, then Okobo, then Melton. Mix and match to your satisfaction. Best of luck, friends and lovers. Let's continue on. 3 more games, that's all. First of the 10:30 games, let's go with Portland going into Denver. First out of the last 3, I'm not going to be on Nurkic at his price. Price has come up enough, a difficult matchup. He's been fine against Jokic in the past. It's the slate that gets him, but worth pointing out that in the last 3 games, he has 3 20 and 10 games, over 43 fantasy points I think it is each time. 2 of those games were 20 and 15s. My man knows how to lay down some wood there. Everything else going on today, the matchup's certainly not the best one. I'm inclined to go elsewhere. I think it's a little more likely Dame goes nuts. Speaking of Dame, I was happy paying 10-1, 10-5, 10-7 for the guy. You better believe at 9,400, 9,500 in what's not the best matchup, I still have a lot of interest. Again, there's that whole Kemba, Kyrie, Steph, Lillard. Steph is my favorite of those if you think that game stays close. I don't think that game stays close. I imagine they absolutely break it off in them. If they don't, I can't imagine what sort of number you get out of Steph in 36 minutes here without Cousins. It'd be a nice number. But I like Lillard quite a bit. But obviously, compared to those other guys, ranks very similarly. But I have him projected for 50 fantasy points still. He costs 9,400 and 9,500. Rodney Hood is a fine drop on FanDuel. Don't want to pay the nuts on Harkless and Aminu on today's slate. Evan Turner, I believe, shot 5 for 5 and 6 for 7 in his 2 consecutive triple-doubles off the bench, both of which came because of blowouts. This being my way of saying, I will not pick him to get his 3rd consecutive triple-double off the bench today. The Nuggets. I like Jokic a lot. I'm curious what we have his ass on there right now. I'm going to guess 8%. 14%. Okay. I like him a little less now. Obviously, a lot of very exciting centers tonight, but, Nurkic thing, triple-double, has managed to be, not Nurkic thing, Cantor thing, triple-double, but has been perfectly fine against Nurkic, which is obviously a much stickier spot to be in. I have no issue with any amount of Jokic. Jamal Murray, the second guy I would go to there. Third, I'll play Paul Millsap at $5,500 on DraftKings. He's been terrible, but now he's $5,500. And there is a ceiling to be had there. But I'd have, in 150 lineups, I'd have, 15 Jokic, 6 Murray, 3 Millsap, something like that, I think is where the numbers would come down. Let's look at the Battle of Los Angeles. I feel like I should like more guys from this game than I do, put mildly. Again, the Lake Show on the back-to-back. DraftKings, especially where the prices are more tolerable. I have both Rondo and McGee ranked as C's in cash and A's in tournaments. They both can do absolutely stupid things in this matchup. Neither got super amounts of time last night. McGee saw only 21 minutes, I want to say. Matchup with the Clippers, obviously a drooler for centers. Ownership is not going to be significant because he's tailed off, I suppose, a little bit recently. 6,800, I'm not shocked if you get 50 there. I'm not shocked if you get 50 out of Rondo. Come to think of it, Rondo triple-doubled against the Clippers last time they played. Yeah, with LeBron and Kuzma there and starting. So, that can happen. So I would have some interest in both those guys at their prices. After that, things get much more specious for me. Price continued to come up on Caruso. He's now over 5K everywhere. No problem with it. By the way, some dunk yesterday, Osmo. Really way to lay the hammer down there. If we get news that Kuzma is out, which I suspect is the more likely conclusion here, rushing him back. Blake still a game time decision. Yeah, he'll get in there. He'll do it Embiid style. Kuzma out, Wagner makes a lot of sense. I have no issue with that. Complication, game correlations, figuring out though. Again, today, not a day I'm super into stacking games. That doesn't mean you can't stack, New Orleans and Phoenix. Sure, there's a real chance that with many of those guys cheap, a lot of them get there. But it's not a day you should be trying to game stack. If you end up with a lot of those guys fit into your lineup and you like their prices, which wouldn't surprise me, yeah, knock it out. I'm not sure I even ranked Lance Stevenson today. I'm disappointed in his inability to get there in many spots. If we were playing 6 games again today, he'd get ranked again because he's a guy who can lay it down and get an upside. The matchup not the most disadvantageous for him. 13 games, I don't think I'm having that. Don't really want to pay 6K for KCP on a 13-game slate. John Williams I ranked. Obviously looked brilliant last night. Pretty much need the blowout. But in that case, we would get the time and obviously can spike a random ceiling for you. Again, 13-game slate, not a ton of love for the Clips. You want Beverly to be out, obviously. Even if he's in, I doubt they push him too hard. There is a blowout risk here. I don't really want to pay 6+ for Shea. I don't really want to play Landry on a slate this size with just so many better just producers in game environments, etc. I don't hate some exposure to Gallinari if the game stays close. If you are playing Rondo or McGee, he's the most immediate run-back option I would look to do. He's been great. He is great. Not a back-to-back or anything. Like me, some of that. Moderate exposure to Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell in a brilliant matchup where they are priced as normal, but again, the matchup fairly brilliant. And we will finish it off with the finals rematch. Cleveland versus Golden State. Things slightly different from the finals. Tristan Thompson, I assume, will not play. Kevin Love will not play. We should get some sort of minutes amortization similar to what we saw yesterday in a similar spot. Basically went as I expected. Nobody was brilliant. Sexton was bad because he doesn't do a goddamn thing but shoot. Chetty was fine. Clarkson was fine. They both got you 30. Not going to be enough tonight, put it that way. Nance, the guy in this team who really carries a big upside with him, probably going to play his 30-something minutes, even in a tough matchup. Better with Cousins out of there. Can certainly see Nance doing a dance, but not Lance in the last game. So, yeah. On DraftKings, I would have 150 lineups, 3 Larry Nances, and we're good. You might get priced into like a Brandon Knight someday, but I wouldn't be happy about it. 5,100 Chetty, probably would get a share or two. He is close to the line of playable here. But again, the matchup not ideal, and they should get their ass pretty well pushed. I'd also have some Monte Zizic. Come to think of it, he ranks right in there. He's another 30-whatever center who ends up comparing very similarly to me to those other guys with Mejri and Kufis and Pirtle. But I expect to be more popular than those guys, so he's someone I'm generally looking to pivot to those other 3X centers. The Golden State Warriors, they're really good at basketball. You get Cousins out of there statistically, game log watchy, Rady, Curry, the guy who has really turned it on the most. This isn't as much apples to apples because a lot of the minutes without Cousins were done with when Curry's on with the second unit, and he's also without either Clay or Kevin, and it's a little more complicated than that, but still based in the denouement, the downturn of Kevin Durant minutes and usage, more inclined to Curry than Durant. Again, if you think this game stays close, all these guys look pretty brilliant. Cleveland is terrible, just terrible defensively. I would have them on DraftKings ranked interest. Curry, Clay, Draymond, Durant. You can play Quinn Cook if you're running the bogout. That's what happens when you try to say blowout and read bogut at the same time. You can Kevon Looney. All this feels a little too cute for me on a slate that side. And we're done? Yeah, that's how we do it. Pro style. 13 games by myself. 50 minutes on the nose. We have 11 minutes until lock. Go ahead and load in some questions if you have them. You know what I think would be funny is, can you recap pay-up centers, please? You didn't mention Boogie. I just mentioned Boogie. Or you didn't mention Looney. I just mentioned Looney. Is he okay on DK? Yeah, he's fine. I just don't know exactly. My impression was Bogut was also going to play, so I don't know what happens with the two of those guys. And if there's a blowout, then do they give them is he fine? Sure, he's fine. You could get 27 minutes out of Looney in against the Cavs. That looks great. You could get 16. So I think he's fine in tournaments. He'd again be right in that mix of centers who cost $3,100 to $3,800. Yeah. So okay, I'm gonna take a minute and refresh a whole lot of things and check alerts and run through my tweet deck options and make sure that everything still adds up and that I didn't miss anything. Doesn't look like. Thank you. I try hard to do so. It was not one of those days where I love my job. But again, we get tomorrow off, then just an absolute kick in the balls Sunday. Maybe I'll do 2 shows Sunday because I imagine we're going to have just slate split up and all the hell over the place, all over. But we will see how that goes. Okay, about 10 minutes. That's updated. If you're watching the show on YouTube, tweet me questions. You missed my PG-13 thoughts on FanDuel. I would never get to them in a single lineup. There are just simply too many small forwards who cost very little who have a real upside. That being said, for that reason, he's going to be relatively low owned. And there's a ceiling there. So do I want to pay $10,000 for Paul George on this slate? No, I want to pay $4,700 for Hazonia, or $3,700 for Bielitsa, or I'm forgetting a couple of the other cheap ones. So I'll look for you. Can I get some scrolling music, please, Paul? $3,600 for Dorian Finney-Smith against Memphis with nobody the hell playing the damn game. It's pretty interesting to me. $4,100 for Rodney Hood. $4,200 for Troy Brown. $4,200 for Derek Jones Jr. You don't have to Tyreek anymore. $4,500 for Bembry. $4,600 for Prince. $4,700 for Justin Jackson in that situation. And that may sort of be it. I'll stop there. $5,400 for Gordon Hayward gets a mention too. So I have no issue with a GPP lineup that ends up with Paul George. Brilliant steals guy. Like coming in again at the wing against Detroit. So you can absolutely get 70 out of Paul George tonight. In a single lineup, I just wouldn't get there. He isn't a priority spend-up option. He costs $10,000. There are 4 point guards that cost $9,000. I have projected raw points more for him. So I hope I'm explaining that well. You have Paul George in your GPP lineup? Thumbs up. No problem. No issue with it whatsoever. It just simply doesn't crank in as the first person I get there. What 2 persons would you start a lineup with on DK? I will not use Trey Burke because that's a little bit too easy. I won't use Mario Hazonia. That's a little bit easy. I won't use Josh Jackson. That's a little bit easy. Maxi Kleber. That's a guy who I really like the upside of, the price of, and the expected ownership for. I'll say Maxi Kleber and Damian Lillard. Those are 2 guys who I like upside, price, and expected ownership. Who are your favorite Knicks? Patrick Ewing, Charles Oakley, John Starks, quick release. You probably mean for tonight's DFS. Mario Hazonia, Damian Dotson, I think. Again, FanDuel, bigger fan for these dudes, but and you can play Mitch, but I'm pretty much going to stop it at those 2 guys most of the time. Single line, DK, GPP, what stud should you go with? Westbrook, Harden, or Lillard? Well, there's a $2,000 price difference between the first 2 guys and the second guy, and the last guy, rather, the latter guy, the third guy. Rudy Goober, someone just sent me. I don't know if they're taunting me for saying Rudy Goober or whether they tried to say Rudy Gobert and got auto-corrected. But I think Gobert is, of the high-price centers, my least favorite on FanDuel. On DK, he is really good. I'll still prefer Vooch a little bit. If you have Blake in, he'd profile similarly to Drummond. I'm fine with it. If you end up with Rudy Goober, feel free to get yourself some. FanDuel cash, Harden, Lillard, or Westy Mitchell. Harden and Lillard in cash. Not terribly close for me among that. Other things. 6 minutes. Look at all this time we have. Did the show so quick. Feels good. Yeah, Gratz winners yesterday. That was a lot of fun. The only thing that would have made that more fun is if 30% of the way into the first game, people were cursing at me and telling me how bad I was, and then people made tens of thousands of dollars. Several people, and everything went exactly how I said. That's the most fun. That happened last week. All right. Well, we have to assume some more news will screw up my evening at some point soon. The dog is going crazy upstairs. The wife has come home. Hornets starting who we expected. Blake Griffin remains a game time decision. Blah, blah, blah. I'd seen all those things. What are you good for? Alright, got that. Loading up things. I'm going to pay a little more attention to news and being prepared, and a little less attention to the witty repartee for the next few minutes. I hope you will all forgive me. Thoughts on Bagley, DK, GPP? I would rather play a lot of guys. Most immediately, I would rather play Christian Wood. Just the matchup scares the shit out of me. And I think this is one of those times I think that's a wrong reaction to injury news. Like you go, oh my God, Willie Cauley-Stein is out. What does it really do? Let me put it this way. You're playing Utah. In the event that you're Marvin Bagley, if Willie Cauley-Stein is in, you're going to spend much more of your time at the 4 than at the 5. So now you're spending more time at the 5. So instead of being guarded by Tabo and Jay Crowder, you're going face-to-face with Rudy Gobert the whole night. And your minutes went up by 4, right? So having Willie Cauley-Stein would probably not have affected my projection for Bagley much. And towards the top of his price range going against Utah, I have very little interest. Could it happen? Sure. Is the upside relatively increased? Sure. But I would be disinclined to go that way. Bender or Kleber on FanDuel. Kleber not remotely close for me. Dragon Bender doesn't have a ceiling, yo. If Dragon Bender was the minimum price, I would sit there and think about it for a while and then probably play someone else. On a slate like this, you need dudes who can give you 50. You should look at your lineup and be like, every one of these guys could give me 50. I guess if you're, playing Costa Kufis or some of the 3K guys, there's a little bit of an exception to that. But like 4,500 5K Dragon Bender, I mean, the matchup is brilliant. If it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen here. I just don't think it's gonna happen. I don't know how many minutes he plays. There's certainly a chance they just, go apeshit crazy and play lots of Ray Spalding and whatever the hell. Yeah, so I'm gonna have Bender under basically anyone else you could ask about, as opposed to Kleber, who has an upside and with many other players in has given you 40 from time to time, and has a better matchup to me at this point. Yeah, I would be much more inclined towards Maxi Kleber. 3 minutes. Did I just say 3 minutes? 3 minutes, everybody. Coming down to it now. I don't think I'm actually going to do any WrestleMania content. It's one of those things that, we were all talking about, and it's kind of exciting to do. And then, we realized that, this is the hybrid baseball-basketball week, and everyone is tired. I guess this is not a week where you're like, oh, let me study up and prepare some content for another show, because you're tired. So, yeah. So I apologize. I'm not sure I will even watch it. It is my anniversary, but we are doing our celebrating tomorrow night, I think. So, Jiminy Christmas. I gotta get ready. I gotta shave some things. Sorry, couldn't help it. So in theory, I am free that night, and I may watch the show, but I do not think I will be live casting WrestleMania. But thank you for asking. It's cute that you remember. Long live wrestling. All right, we're coming down to it. I am looking. I am tweeting. I am responding to tweets. Paul Goldschmidt has hit a home run. That's not the first time I've seen that this year. nothing is happening. I'm looking. I'm looking. Give me an alert. Ping. Something break. Give me news. FanDuel GP, Burke and Vooch or Kyrie and I assume that's all. Burke and Vooch. Alright. 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 30 seconds until we begin. Yeah, this is a problem, officer, because I cannot afford another ticket in my Porsche. McGee or Cantor on FanDuel? McGee. Perhaps there's something I can do for you? Something my wife can do for you? And we're locked. Okay, everyone. There we go. We made it through. I honestly think we did a pretty good job. Thanks to everyone for the questions, the content, the curiosity. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of their ownership. See just how crazy this is. Again, we had 4 7 p.m. games, I think. So let's see. $250,000 on DraftKings. We shall look there first. Do the clickety-clickety. There we go. First lineup I clicked on had nobody. Which I guess you're keeping your option open. Number 1, Vooch, 23%. Yeah, that's about where that number should be. 22.47, so I guess 22% if I'm going to round. I may as well round well. Yeah, I have no strong take on that. Feels about right. 17.3% Aldridge, 14.7% DeRozan. Yep. Seems good. Well done so far, everyone. Trae Young, 9.8%. Yeah, okay. I'd have less than that just because, again, I'm Steph and Kyrie and Kemba and Lillard, and just they all were better for me than him, so his 5th best point guard in that range, I can't imagine I even get to 10%. But it's Trae Young, and even in a tough matchup, if you were playing several guys on the Magic. What I'm pretty excited about is to see no Magic players mentioned yet, but Vooch, still no Magic. Thomas Bryant, 8.7%. I'd have less than that at that price. I like Thomas Bryant a lot, and I don't mind it just because, again, last game saw whatever the hell 39 goddamn minutes. So, okay. Les Jabari Parker I can see feeding into his pocket a little bit, but I don't think I'd get there. Aaron Gordon, 7%. Love that. John Collins, 4.6%. Probably still have a little bit less, believe it or not, but can't feel too bad about 5% John Collins. Kemba Walker, 4%. I would have more. DJ Augustine, 3%. I'd have more. Jeremy Lamb, 3%. Pascal Siakam, 3%. Evan Fournier, 3%. I'd have more. Troy Brown, 3%. Bobby Portis, 2.7%. Kawhi Leonard, 2.4%. Justin Anderson, 2.2%. Jordan McRae, 2.2%. Terrence Ross, 2.06%. DeAndre Bembry, 2.05%. Derek White, 1.9%. I'd have more. Serge Ibaka, 1.20. Taurean Prince, 1.15. Marc Gasol, 1.14. The price just wasn't good enough. Wanted to look at one of those centers, couldn't do it. Bradley Beal, 1%. Alright, so that's 1/15 of the rake taken care of. Danny Green, 0.97. Frank Kaminsky, 0.91. Kyle Lowry, 0.89. Bryn Forbes, 0.87. Jonathan Isaac, 0.86. Might have more. MKG, 0.81. Jeff Green, 0.81. Patty Mills, 0.81. Slam and Sammy Decker, who I forgot to mention. I didn't hate Sammy Decker. And again, that's why you look at the rankings. If while I'm running through 400 players off the top of my head, I forget one, he's ranked. Jakob Poeltl, 0.61. I'd have more. I'd have a good bit more of that. I'd have like 5% Poeltl. Satoransky, 0.6. DK, that's actually about right. Alex Lund, 0.6. I'd have a little more than that. Sweet Dick Willie Hernan Gomez, 0.5. I'd have more than that. He's a guy who carries an upside. Is still pretty cheap. Matchup, obviously, dreadful, but one shitty game does not completely neuter him. Davis Bertans, don't get your Bertans twisted, 0.46. Nick Batum, 0.42. I guess technically you didn't play yourself, but you might have played already as much as he's going to. Rudy Gay, 0.4. Chasson Randall, 0.4. Vince Carter, 0.4. Miles Bridges, 0.35. Fred Van Vliet, 0.31. Dwayne Bacon, 0.27. Malik Monk, 0.20. Bismack Biyombo, 0.20. Devontae Graham, 0.17. Wes Iwundu, 0.15. Kem Birch, 0.15. Eugi Anunoby is playing, 0.15. Jeremy Lin, 0.12. Norman Powell, 0.12. Tony Parker, 0.06. Lonnie Walker, the fourth, 0.05. Went flight mode last night. Shelvin Mack, 0.03. Kevin Huerter, 0.02%. He is transparent, but he is also transparently not playing this evening. Congratulations. You have played yourself. Phew. So, I'm on a 47-hour break or what have you. What? Oh, fine. I will FanDuel. You. Just when I try to get out, they pull me back in. Let's duel some fans real quick. Let's take out our pistol and just shoot them right in the face. Ooh, 200K on FanDuel. You're right. Wasn't a very big slate or anything. Might as well go cheap. Clicking on lineups. Vooch, 31%. On a one center site. That is a number. Like, he ended up being point per dollar my favorite guy there, and we don't have, Drummond Griffin news, but, whew, that is a number. Pascal, 4%. Kawhi, 16%, which, it's small forward on FanDuel, but I'm not getting to no 16% Kawhi. Terrence Ross, 3.5%. Yeah, Daddy likes that. Again, guy has a few bad games. People forget that he has pop-off for 50 potential for the goddamn Hawks. People don't understand the value. Aldridge, 16. Foreigner, 8%. I'd have more. This is a much less enjoyable task when I'm just clicking through shit. 3.5% Rudy Gay. With not starting, that's tough to get to. 1% Bryn Forbes. Feel good about that, sir. 1.5% Michael Carter Williams at $4,300. But I guess blowout. Hawks. I will forgive you. Kemba Walker, 13. Seems like a good number. Frank, 3.4. I'd be pretty excited to be a little bit over that. Alright, there it is. I am exhausted. It has been quite a day at both of the jobs. So, my pleasure as always. Thanks for tuning in. Best of luck tonight. Should I have completely screwed you by talking you off, let's say, Marvin Bagley, feel free to let me know. I appreciate that. I will apologize, or if you are funny about it, retweet your, Eddie, are you sure you didn't make your picks with a dartboard today? Oh, that's fairly clever. Retweet. I'm that kind of guy. Just don't be like, you suck balls. Which, again, actually, of all the insults you could give me, I enjoy it good, so how could I? Anyway. There it is, folks. I am off to enjoy my anniversary tomorrow, watching some of the Ballon-Cesta. And I appreciate your time, as always. Bonne chance, mes amis.